guys. Welcome to a day in the life of a software engineer. My name is Shakim, and I'm going to be pretty much just showing you guys how a typical day at work might go if I was working on a project. Let's say I was working on YouTube. So I always like to use YouTube as an example because I'm on YouTube, and plus it's a very good way to teach yourself how to come up with a solution if you are just beginning. So I'm going to show you everything on a basic level, and then we're going to get into some more complex things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new React project. I'm going to click on React from Code Sandbox. And what this is going to do is this is going to create a React project for me hosted in the cloud. So that way I don't have to worry about spending time setting it up. And it's going to come by default with the latest version of React, which is React 17.0. It's going to come with React DOM, and it's going to come with React scripts, which is how we actually start our application. So you can see what we're doing here. You can see that we have the capability to expand our screen, to make it bigger. We can make it smaller, and we have our code right here. We have our code editor right next to it. So the first thing you want to do if you're seriously working on something is actually fork your project from Code Sandbox. So you just click on fork in the right-hand corner, and it'll say forked sandbox when it's completed. Fork just means make a copy of. So we're going to make a copy of this on our GitHub, and we're going to call it YouTube React UI. That's what we're going to call it. And it's going to create a repository on GitHub. So if you don't know what GitHub is how we do source version and control. That just means that's how we keep track of our code as we make changes over time. We want to make sure that we're able to go back and see what we changed. So we're going to click fork again. All right. And when we click on the GitHub tab of our application, then we want to click link sandbox. And this is going to allow us to create commits and create pull requests to actually update our code on GitHub. All right. So when you've set that up correctly, it should tell you you do not have access to commit directly to main because we forked it. So we have to create a PR after we've made our changes. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. So for now, what we have here is just a basic app. Let's go through our folder structure real quick. So we have a public folder. This public folder has an index.html file. So this is where JavaScript comes in, because React and JavaScript, they have to work in harmony. And what they've done here is there's nothing in this HTML file except a title tag, a head tag, no scripts, and just a div tag with an ID of root. And that is where we have hooked our React app up to. So in the old days, before the days of React and Angular, we were actually writing HTML by itself. So what I'm going to do before I even start writing any React is I'm just going to create some HTML. So HTML is structured in particular ways. So we start off with an HTML tag that lets our app know that we're writing in HTML. And you can see that here at the top. We have a head, right? And the head represents a collection of metadata for the document. All right. And then we have links, which allows authors to link our document to other objects. And so what they've linked here is these two icons, and they have links to favicon and manifest.json. And our title is where we get, like when you look at a website in a browser and you see the title of the website, it's inside that HTML title tag. So we wanted to change this. Let's say we're going to change this to YouTube. Okay, so something simple like that is how we can change the title. And right now we only have one div. We just have one div by the name of root. So what I'm going to do is save that file. And now I can make a change. So I'm just going to title this changed title. And I have the option here to create a branch for the commit and start a PR. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to commit those changes. All right. And now let's go ahead and open up that PR. All right. And you can see here that whatever change we just made, it's visible here as initial commit. So what it's going to do is whenever we want to make changes, it's going to create a PR, and then it has to update, and it's going to show you exactly what was changed from the first file to this file. And you can see here the only thing that changed is that we changed the title from React App to YouTube. So I'm going to sign into GitHub right now. Excuse me. All right, so it's going to tell you immediately if you have continuous integration set up. So continuous integration is a way for you to integrate new code into your application. And we're going to set up CI/CD for deployment in a moment. But for now, the most important thing is we just want to make sure that there's no conflicts with the base branch. And that just means our code can run and there's not a problem. So we're going to confirm that merge right there. And it's going to say pull request successfully merged and closed. So when we go back to our code now, and we look at our source code, and we go to, sorry, not our source code, our public folder. We go to our public folder. We can see here that the new title, when we go to our code, is YouTube. Okay, so that's just a quick look at making pull requests and making commits. So Code Sandbox saves you a lot of time because you usually have to set this up on your local machine. But for now, we don't need to do that. So that's just a quick introduction to just show you the HTML part of our application. So the next part of our application has three parts. We have a styles.css, we have an index.js, and we have an app.json. And we also have a package.json. So what's in our package.json? Well, our package.json contains all of the dependencies for our application. So you can see the dependencies here on the left side, and that has our scripts, right, which we need to start our application, what we need to build our application, what we need to test our application, and what packages we need to actually run. And this script right here, main, says, hey, where are we getting everything from our application from? Well, we're going to get it from our source.index.js. So what's in our source.index.js? So they've imported strict mode, and strict mode is a particular package that you wrap your app inside if you wanted to catch errors early. And then all we have here is a root element, and we're using JavaScript to get an element by ID. And then we render on the DOM the app and the root element. So that's what this does. Very simple, right? And then inside our app component, this is where we have just a function called app, and it has a div with a class of app, and there's an h1 tag and an h2 tag, and that's it. All right, so that's how our app is set up. So what we want to do is we want to install a couple packages. So we definitely want to be using GraphQL in this course. So let's download Apollo. All you have to do is just type in Apollo client, install Apollo. And for content purposes, we can use many different libraries to make our job easier in React. There's semantic UI, there's material UI, there's all kinds of libraries. So we want to use semantic UI. All right, so we've installed semantic UI and we've installed Apollo. So We are trying to build a version of YouTube, and what we have to look at is we have to break YouTube down into different parts. So if we go to YouTube right now, we can see that YouTube is split into several parts. So we have this menu over here to the side, and when we click this menu, it expands and it closes, right? So this is a sidebar menu, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 icons, and all of those icons take you to specific links. We have a logo here in the left-hand corner. We have a search bar, which allows us to make a query to search for data. And we have an icon next to our search bar, which allows us to actually search. We have also we have an ability to search with our voice. So we click this, it'll ask for permission to access our microphone. And as you can see here, it's listening to what we're saying. And then it takes what we says and it creates a query and it searches on YouTube. So you can see here, even when we make a query, this sidebar menu is still here. So this sidebar menu is global. This is something that's going to be there no matter what page we're on, no matter what we click on. Like if we click on this, as soon as we click on a video, that menu is completely hidden. But even if it's hidden for now, we can still expand it on a video. So keep that in mind when we start thinking about how we're going to build our app. The next part of the top part of our page is another icon. And this icon is a list menu that just has links to other YouTube services like YouTube TV, YouTube Music, YouTube Kids, YouTube for Artists. Then there's another type of icon right here, which is for settings. And that's also a list menu drop down. And with that, within this settings menu, you have an option to pick a device theme. So we can switch it from device theme to dark theme, and it'll change. We can switch it to light theme, and it'll change to normal. We also have the ability to set a language. So if we want to change our language, we can change it here. You can see here. So YouTube has what we call internationalization, which is the ability to switch languages. So that has to be a feature of our app as well. In addition, we have a settings page. And if we don't have a user signed in, then it's going to just take us to youtube.com/account, unable to access a Google product. All right, let's go back. So what else do we have on our menu? So we also have your data in YouTube. We have help. We have send feedback. We have keyboard shortcuts and restricted mode. Next to that, we have an icon and a link for the user to sign in. All right. So how do we divide this up into something simple? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a diagram to guide me through this process so that I can figure out what I'm doing as I go. So I'm going to create a blank diagram now in my root folder. All right, and I'm going to say I want a vertical container. And again, this is like an example, like if I was looking at a wireframe or some sort of design, I would say we have a menu. So we need to have this hamburger menu. This is what we call menus like this when you click on them and they expand or contract. So we have hamburger menu, which is going to take some sort of list. So on the home page, when you're not looking at a video, right? When you're not rendering a video, it's a list of icons. So it's just going to be a list of 5 icons, and then you can click it and it'll expand the space that we see here. So see the difference here? When we expand this menu, it stops being a strictly vertical menu, and it turns into a horizontal type of menu. And there's 5 options again, and then there's the best of YouTube part of it, and that's going to show you all the categories. And then settings, report history, send feedback, and then a footer. So inside this hamburger menu, there's also a footer with many different links, as well as an option to send feedback and settings. So when thinking about how we want to set this up, we'll just do it like this. So let's create a square. And let's just say icon 1, home. Icon 2, explore. Sorry, let me make this bigger. Icon 2, explore. Icon 3 is what? Trending. Icon, no, subscriptions is the next one. So we'll call, instead of explore, we're going to call that trending. We could have a trending option here as well next to explore. So let's say we want to have explore, trending, subscriptions, library, and history. All right, so this is our hamburger menu. This is what we need at first. And then we can see here that there's an option to sign in, like videos, and subscribe. So there needs to be a button. Can actually make this a little bit bigger. So after that, there needs to be just a regular button. Let's type in button. And it doesn't have to be blue, but this is just to give us a visual. And then there needs to be some text above it to say, hey, sign in to subscribe, like, and make comments. All right. Next, we want a best of YouTube section, and that's going to have a bunch of categories. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 categories there. And then we have a link to browse channels. So we need to say, we're going to create another one of these, and we're just going to duplicate that. And we'll say, this is for the best of YouTube, and we'll just have a similar categorization. So we'll say music, sports, gaming, movies, and shows. And create a live category, and and the last one we'll just say can be learning. Okay. After that, there's a link to browse channels, and if we click on a link to browse channels, it's going to take us to just a grid of a bunch of channels with avatars. So that's also something we need to think about as well later on as we make more progress inside our application. So we're going to create another button. It says browse channels. All right, after browse channels, we have more from YouTube. So it's just a section for people to select premium, live, settings, report history, help, and send feedback. And then there's the footer. So the next section, we want to link for people to go to their live studio. Oh no, live is actually a YouTube page that just has a bunch of live videos, I guess. Okay. So we need a page that's specifically going to show live streams only. And so we're going to make this a little bit bigger. All right. And this is our more from YouTube section. We need an icon for live. Oh, sorry. Icon 1 is for premium. Icon 2 is for live. We need another icon for settings. And we need feedback. And what else is there? Report history, help, and send feedback. All right. And then the last part is just a footer. It's just a footer. It just has a bunch of different links in it. Okay. So that's the left hand side of our page. We got that figured out. The next part is going to be the search bar. So we need some type of input. Let's see what type of, here we go. I think this will be a good representation of our search bar. We just need to make it way smaller. And we'll make it blue. And just make it smaller. All right. So that's our search bar. That's going to represent a user typing in something. And then we need an icon for search. There's my computer frozen. Okay. Like that. Search icon. And next to the search icon, there's a microphone icon, which is going to connect to the user's microphone and translate that into a string. So we need a microphone. And next to that, we just have two more icons, right? A drop-down menu and a list menu. And the last part is just going to be a section where we have an avatar. And we have some text that says sign in. Okay. So back to our homepage. So our homepage has, it's just a grid. That's all it is. It's just a grid, right? It's just a grid that just has a bunch of items rendered horizontally. And that's the rest of our website. So once you get the basic idea of what you're building, then you can actually start thinking about the details. So what we're going to do first is actually build out our menu. Then we're going to add the ability to add a query. Then we're going to make our icons actually work. You see how they work now where we click, and then we will actually upload some data and start fetching videos in a grid fashion. So let's go to our code now. And what we want to create inside our source directory, we want to create a components folder. And this is where we're going to store all the components for our application. We're going to store them inside a components directory. And we can just immediately start thinking about what type of components we're going to need. So the very first one I'm going to create is going to be called header menu.js. And for this particular project, we're going to use Sass. So we're going to install Node Sass. We have Node Sass 6.0.1. So quick overview of Sass, just for anybody not familiar with it. It's a way to have CSS be processed quickly, and it allows you to build modular and scalable CSS. So how we do it is we use indentation rather than brackets to indicate nesting of selectors, and new lines rather than semicolons to separate properties. So we're not using any semicolons here. We just have a property called text color, which we assign a value of 333. We have a body tag and we have a color tag. All right. And the way that it works is each component will have its own CSS file. The way that we used to build things is that we used to build things as one giant HTML file, one CSS file, and one JavaScript file. So this header menu needs to have several things. So the first thing we're going to do is import React from React. And what we're going to do is we're going to say export default function header menu. And what is it going to do? So it needs to have several icons. So we need some icons in order to do this successfully, right? So let's get a hamburger menu icon. And let's say we want to get it from Semantic UI. Does Semantic UI have hamburger icons? Hold on, let's see. Let's go to Semantic UI icons. Okay. So in Semantic UI, we don't want just regular Semantic UI. We need Semantic UI with React, of course. So let's see. Yeah, it's going to be impossible to find the icon that I probably need. Let's see. This one is fine. List.ui. Okay. So all we got to do is click on that and copy it into our file. And it just copied the word list. So let's see. So we're going to import icon from Semantic UI-React. Don't have that installed, make sure you install that as one of your dependencies. And of course, we're going to be using some sort of state here in this particular application because that menu has to change, right? So we're going to import use state, and we're going to say const expanded is expanded equals use state, and we're going to set it to false in the beginning. And that's just for the purposes of our menu to say, hey, our menu is expanded, or actually it's not. All right. And so the next part is we want to return icon. All right. And now we want to import header menu from components / header menu. And inside of our hold on. To the app index. All right. So the way we're going to structure it is we're going to actually move this app.js into our components directory. So what we can do is create a new file, and we can call it, create a new folder, I should say, called app. And we'll just move this into app.js. So let's just copy that. Index.js. And we'll also create a styles.sass file. And inside that index.js, we'll just paste that there. And then we can delete this app.js because we don't need it anymore. And then we can actually delete this header menu that we just made too, because we're going to structure it differently. And we don't need this styles.sass there anymore because we're using Sass. And let's create a new folder called header. Inside a header, we're going to create header menu, or just header.js, that's fine. And then we're going to create the styles folder inside our header. So we'll just call it styles.sass. All right, and the way that it's going to work is every time we create a component, we're going to create a new folder with that component in it. And inside of that folder, it's going to have a JavaScript or JSX or TypeScript file, and it'll have a corresponding Sass file as well. Let's see, one more thing I wanted to just see real quick. It does have an index, okay. All right, so of course we broke our app. So let's go back to header menu is empty, app.index.js is empty. So let's get rid of that for now. And let's see what's wrong with our app. This is why I don't like doing shit on Code Sandbox. All right, it's recompiling. And you got to change this to that. And it works. All right. So what we're doing now is just setting up the structure for our application. We want to make our application modular and scalable because it's going to be a lot of code being reused. There's going to be many different moving pieces of our application. And that's why I structured it in this way so that inside of our source directory, we have a main.index file, which just renders the app component to the DOM on our root element. And then each component, there's going to be an index file and a styles file. So we're going to take a 2-minute pause and I'm going to start building the menu. So I'll be right back in 2 minutes. So yeah, right now, this is going to be some type of input form, and it's going to take an input type. And what else are we rendering? We also have another icon. We're going to call this one mic icon. And then we need another icon. We need two more icons and then some sort of button for people to sign in. And that should have some type of default avatar. All right, so let's go ahead and add that. So let's say if class name, second menu icon. Oh, it doesn't have to be there. It needs to be here. Okay. And we have third menu icon. Then we have another div with sign in section. We'll just call that sign in, and that's going to have some sort of icon, and it's going to have some sort of text, which is going to say sign in. All right, so this is just setting up the foundation of what we expect to actually build out in more detail. So if you're not familiar with JSX, JSX is compiled to actual JavaScript. So what you're looking at is not actual JavaScript. In order for this to be JavaScript, it would look something like document dot create element ID, and then we could pass in input or something like that. All right, so that's how JavaScript actually looks. Oops. All right. All right, so of course, when we are taking in a query and have some sort of input, that's going to change. And also all of these icons that we have here, they're clickable. So there will be some sort of on-click property passed to all of these icons. And so now the only thing we need to do to actually get started is to actually import some sort of icons into our application. So looking at Semantic UI React, it looks like we just import the icon object from Semantic UI React. And these are all the properties that an icon can have. All right, so let's go ahead and import icon into this folder. So we're going to import icon from Semantic-UI React. And it's imported like this. And it should take a name property of whatever name the icon it is. So we're going to say name equals list. All right. And let's go ahead and import. Well, we already exported this function. And so now we can actually import this into our, our div. Let me close the tab because it's loaded really slow right now. All right, it's recompiling right now, so I'm just waiting on it to do that. All right, so you see that we've imported our header menu into our app component, and our app component is showing everything that we put inside of our header menu. So we go back to our header menu index.js file. See that we have an icon with the name of list, and we have an input type. That's the input that's right here. So I'm going to make this bigger for 1 second. Hold on. Why can't I make this go away? Well, I don't see our icon there. So let me just make sure we have Semantic UI React installed. Let's see. Semantic UI React. I don't see it. So and if you want to verify you have that package installed, you could just go to your package.json file. All right, and I see Semantic UI React is there. So let's go back to, let's look up how to render icons real quick in Semantic UI. No, that's not what I'm looking for. This is regular Semantic UI. Icon name equals user. Let's get rid of that icon because it's not doing anything. And let's add, we can add that icon next to our sign in. Still not seeing it. But yeah, I'm not sure why those icons aren't loading. So what we're gonna do is we can use something else. that might work. So there's another library called Material UI. So we're going to try with Material UI. Doesn't really matter what UI library you choose. Now we're going to figure out how to do icons from Material UI. MUI/icons material. Okay. There we go. All right, so we install that library, and they use the MUI SVG icon component to render the SVG path for each icon. Okay, and so we can import the icons in two ways. We can import them like so, import access alarm icon from MUI/access alarm, or we can import them in one row from one library. So we're going to use the second approach. All right, let's search for list. Let's see if they have a list as well. Okay, let's see what they got. All right, so we're just going to copy that. Yeah, my computer is lagging and it's really making it hard for me to make the changes I'm trying to make. Okay. Cannot find dependency MUI material. Okay, so we need to add another dependency. Add MUI/material. Add motion start as a dependency. It's so many dependencies for Material UI that have to be installed. So I'm just waiting to see what else I need to install for Material UI. It's going to tell me every time if something's missing. Okay, and you can see we finally have our icon there. So it is working. Okay, I just wanted to test that and make sure that we had these icons now. So this icon actually needs to go before our search bar. So before we have our search bar, that's where we're going to put that list icon at. We can put it actually here. For some reason, this is not closed. All right, you can see there's our little sidebar menu thing that we wanted the whole time. Okay, great. So we have that there, and now we just need a mic icon. So let's go back to the material icon library, and let's search for a mic. There we go. Just copy that. I hate the way the spacing is set up. It's like it's not enough space put here. This is not spaced right. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I can see. All right, so that's our mic icon. So all we got to do is write. All right, so there's our mic icon, and then we just need, going back to our diagram, we have the hamburger menu icon, we have a search bar icon, which is right after, before the microphone, So we need a search bar icon. So let's get that. All right, and let's see. Then for our other icons, we'll just do something simple like a view stream. Sounds cool. Our next one, for this one, we'll use a view stream for that. Let's go ahead and import that. And here we'll write and it's going to be our avatar icon. Okay, very good. So we have all of our icons there. And if we change the screen size of this, it should stretch out some more. It looks like it's rendering everything horizontally. So hold on one second. Let me copy this link and let's go here. Okay. Yeah, this is not the actual code that's there. So yeah, sometimes Code Sandbox doesn't always update. So let me just refresh. that's kind of accurate. Okay, so all right, so we do have everything here. Now you can see that it doesn't move when we change things on the page, so it lets you know it's not responsive. We still need to make sure things can click. We can click around and expand things. The sign in thing needs to be a link to actually sign into something, among other things. So I'm going to save my changes here. Sandbox is moving very, very slow. I may actually set this up on my local machine because Code Sandbox is moving very, very slow right now. And I got to fork again to make changes. Okay. All right, so this is just some initial setup, nothing major, just showing you how to add icons and a menu, just to give you some context for Material UI and things like that. So what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to actually set this up on our local host because I think Host Sandbox is just a little too slow to do as much development as we would like to do tonight. So I will be setting up another video for this and I will see you in the next one. Peace.